The film review section. This week, we decided to watch Mank. I say we decided, Sean suggested it, and then as soon as I saw the credits pop up, I thought, fuck, it's Gary Oldman. Well, there's swearing in this, by the way. Kids.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, Gary Oldman. I'm like, Sean's tricked me into watching a Gary Oldman film. But then you got to the "and Charles Dance," and I'm like, all right, maybe. And then it said directed by David Fincher. I knew nothing about this film going in, by the way. I hadn't heard anything of it. And I'm like, I like David Fincher films. This could be good. I'm in.
Well, all I knew about it was who it was about and like what this it was about writing Citizen Kane, and Gary Oldman was in it. That's all I knew.
Right.
And Amanda Seyfried. That's the only thing I knew about it. I was surprised when I saw Charles Dance and David Fincher. I was even more surprised when Charles Dance was doing an American accent.
I didn't even notice, to be honest. I did not notice that. There we go.
It's basic, but it's there.
So what we're going to do with this then is we're going to go... It's a bit of a synopsis, then we're going to give you general thoughts, non-spoilers, and then we'll go into a spoiler section. We'll clearly mark it, so feel free to listen up until then, and we'll put it in the show notes. So, Sean, do you want to do synopsis?
Yes, I will. It's about Mank. It's about Manchester and people in it. No, it is about Herman Mankiewicz, the guy who wrote Citizen Kane. It's about him writing Citizen Kane, the kind of the stuff he was going through at the time. And it flashes back to sort of like, what would it work out as? Maybe, I'd never done the math, 6 years earlier, something like that, 7 years earlier.
Yeah.
It's about that.
That'll do.
And things that sort of lead up to where he sort of comes up with the ideas. Would you say that? That's kind of what it was getting at.
Yeah, aye.
And that's pretty much it, as basic as it can be. It's like, it's about a guy who's broke his leg, he's convalescent, and he's writing a film at the same time.
Yeah.
He's got a bit of a drink problem.
That's it. I mean, there isn't really much to tell, and that's sort of one of the things for me was narratively, there's not a lot of meat there. You know, you've got to like it for other reasons than the story of it, because it's just the story of a guy who writes a screenplay.
That's the thing. I think I did a little bit of reading up, and I think his career started to like slow down a bit by that point. And he kind of lost a bit of credibility. He lost a bit of sort of like his standing within Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, clearly has. I mean, they clearly put that into the film, didn't they? So yeah.
And he was very sort of outspoken about what he thought about people and things like that. And I think it showed like the drink sort of bringing that out a bit. And then so he's kind of like lost his footing, and then he's got this idea, and this young upstart 24-year-old, for some reason, gets sway and complete creative control in Orson Welles. I just want to know more about that. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Like, how did this 24-year-old come out of seemingly nowhere? Like, yeah, do what you want.
It was. I mean, it was an odd start, but I mean, the way they sort of structured the film does emulate Citizen Kane itself. And I know you haven't seen it and things like that, but
it's
yeah,
one on my many list of.
Aye, it was on mine for years, and then, and I finally got around to
yeah.
it. And the greatest film ever made, yeah, it probably is, but I didn't really like it all that much. I've just rewatched it again after having watched Mank, just to see a lot of things, and I reckon this is definitely a film where if you've watched Citizen Kane, or if you love Citizen Kane, you'll get way more out of this. It's like, you know, if someone told me how, you know, did a film of making of Back to the Future or something, that I'd be way more into that, because I know that film a lot better, sort of thing. So if you're into Citizen Kane, yeah, it'll be great. I would say that, like, if I hadn't been watching it for this, I'd actually checked, because 27 minutes in, I'd have been gone. It wasn't. The pace is really slow to start, sort of thing. It's like I didn't know what it was about. It's not about Manchester, which I thought it might have been. And it was getting into it, and I'm like, it's just not going anywhere. It just doesn't seem like it's going to be interesting. I did like, though. I really, really liked the style of it. Like the way the film looks is brilliant. I looked it up. It's Eric Messerschmidt who did the cinematography, and correct me if I'm wrong, because we know really nothing about any of this. We're just two guys who like films and all that sort of stuff. You may know a bit more than me. The lighting in this was amazing, I thought. the way they used it.
That stood out to me.
Yeah.
Especially because obviously it's in black and white. Me, I don't mind that kind of stuff, but a lot of modern audiences will have like problems with it. But that's one thing that stood out for me was the lighting, even though it's black and white. It was very, and one thing I noticed quite a few times as well. I don't know how often it happened, because a bit of background here, I'm blind in one eye, so I only see left.
The cigarette burns.
But I noticed, I noticed that a couple of times. I was like, how many times has that happened?
I think I noticed it for the first time about 12 minutes in.
It was probably about an hour before.
Oh, right, yeah, they're quite regular. It's sort of like, it's almost every time there's a scene change, I think. I suppose that's how the film's paced. I think traditionally, they have other things going on as well. There's like sort of cracks in the screen and all that sort of stuff, maybe the hair on the film and all that sort of stuff. And they have hazed it as well. They've sort of like, they've made it fuzzier, so it's not. It was shot apparently in 8K, whatever that means. But it doesn't look like it. Not my telly anyway, did it?
Yeah. I was watching it on my laptop,
but,
so yeah.
But yeah, just brilliant. Just really good work from Eric Messerschmidt, who I don't think's done too many films. He did another one with Fincher, but he's done Legion on TV as well. But yeah, just beautiful. I mean, the way they told the story through light a bit as well. You know, when you could tell it was a flashback because it went a bit darker or it went a bit lighter, or you know, the way they showed the scenes and all that sort of stuff, I thought was really good.
Well, that's one thing I never really thought about that as much in terms of like light for like flashbacks and that. But it's kind of because I liked how like when it was a flashback, it'd tell you like at the screen. It'd tell you like they were setting out a script, which
I like that little thing, like the interior, external sort of thing, day and all that sort of. Yeah.
And then brackets, flashback, which I always thought was quite cool. But now that you said that as well, it's like the light kind of changed a bit when it was flashback. So maybe they didn't need it, but because the style it was in, old typewriter type stuff, and it was the actual typewriter sound was coming up when it was typing across the screen. Again, it's old Hollywood writing, so it's like it works.
And as with Citizen Kane, sort of the flashbacks get darker as it goes through. You know, everything becomes a bit more sparse. You know, the emptiness of the central character sort of comes across a bit more. Maybe, yeah, we're not getting into spoilers there. We're saying that, I don't think. But yeah, they do that really well. I'll stop there because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody who actually wants to watch it. But that element to me was really good. The cinematography, the lighting, and all that sort of stuff. Brilliant. The score as well, I thought. Not intrusive, because I just rewatched Citizen Kane again, and it's all that big stuff that's just it's a bit too dramatic for what's actually going on the screen a lot of the time with all the films I find. But with this one, it seemed...
A lot of films back then were it's like that, isn't it? Because I think, not brand new, but scoring a film back then was... The way they used score, it just started to change. Obviously, a lot of the time it was telling the story, because it was silent film, so they used it for like... And I think then it got a bit more sort of like narrative, maybe a bit more dramatic. Because I think apparently, was it Gone with the Wind? I think was the first time it was used the way like we'd recognise music in the film now.
Right, okay.
If that makes sense. It's kind of like more sort of like character rather than just it's a funny scene, so we'll be a bit upbeat. It's getting dramatic.
Right, okay.
So instead of like, it's a bit more sort of like telling the story. So I think that obviously back then it was sort of like in your face because it was the way they were using it was relatively new, and it just sort of had to be a bit bombastic and stuff. But like I said, I've never seen Citizen Kane yet, so I'm guessing Mank is like you said, it's emulating in a way the style of Citizen Kane, telling the story of how it was made, basically.
And clearly, you don't have to have seen Citizen Kane to enjoy this because you've watched to watch it anyway. You've watched it. There are things that you will get, and I mean, I'll have missed loads. I got some of them, but the size of the sets and the way things look, the angles of the cameras and all that sort of thing. The big sort of Xanadu type castle thing that Charles Dance, who is the Citizen Kane of this. So
in general, then, what did you think about? Was it a film that you'd recommend to people? Do you like it? Do you think it'll be on any lists, like top 10 lists in the future?
To me, so just overall, I would say if you think you're gonna like this film, then give it a watch. If you don't think you're gonna like this film, then you probably won't. I like on viewing, I really didn't. In trying to unpick it for this, I found a sort of probably a better understanding of what they were trying to do. But I admired a lot of the technical aspects of it, performances. Gary Oldman, Amanda Seyfried. There's the guy who I recognise from TV, Toby Leonard Moore, who he has a great scene and all that sort of stuff. And I enjoyed individual scenes, but I think there's a line in the film that I think sort of sums it up quite well. And it's one that Gary Oldman actually says himself as Mank. You can't tell the story of a man's life in 2 hours.
Yeah, I'll pick up on that when he said that.
That's deliberate. They put that in the script, and he almost turns to the camera when he says that, because that's basically my problem with this film, is that it's the story of a guy writing a script. He has a bit of a tiff with his boss or his employer. He's having a bit of a time of it. You see why in flashbacks. That's it. But it's not dramatic in any real way. It's just a story.
I think it's like, it reminds me. I mean, there's nothing like this film, but like, it was the middle of last year whenever it came out. I watched that. Is it Devil All the Time? Is that what it's called? With Batman and Spider-Man and Dudley Dursley.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, Winter Soldier. They're all there. And I like that film. It was a decent film. Very good, but the performances more than anything stood out for me. And it's kind of the same with Mank. I mean, I liked it. I'm not going to shout at the rooftops, people watch this film. But it's more like the performances just stood out for me. But again, they're different level of performances. Like Devil All the Time, very dramatic, very a tough watch at times. And the performances were sort of loud in a good sense. They're very more sort of subtle and sort of quiet here, but they're very, Gary Oldman could just read a phone book and be a phenomenal actor, in my opinion. He doesn't. It's like he doesn't try.
Oh yeah, and don't get me wrong. As I've said to you before, but I want to make it clear. I do think he's a brilliant actor, Gary Oldman. I just personally don't like watching him, but I can see the craft in what he does every time I see him. I just, for some reason, it's just it's an analogy.
Yeah,
that's all.
Do you know what I noticed about him?
It's not his fault.
In what I like about him. In me, like, again, a bit of background, I studied acting, and I was never very good at voices or like accents. Nearly everything he does is a different, not just a different accent, a different voice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know how he does it. It's like everything. Like when someone's doing an accent, sometimes you can tell, oh, that's so and so try to do like, or maybe accomplishing that accent. Mm-hmm. The tone of the voice is always kind of similar. It's always there.
Yeah.
Not with him. Like nearly everything he does, it's a different voice.
Yeah, really... it changes his voice. It changes the pacing of his voice, the accent, the inflections. It even comes through in his physicality as well. Yeah. I think you can see it come. The voice comes from the entire character that he builds and things like that.
And even like I was going to say, and like I know it was probably going to turn up at one point. Didn't think it'd turn up on the very first episode. I love Doctor Who, and do you know the guy who played? What was the character's name? His friend, the English guy who was helping him out when he was being like recuperating. I'll find it. It's right here.
I don't know.
I should have double checked straight away. But John Houseman, the character who, like the English guy who sort of brings him to that place with Lily Collins to recuperate. He is played by Sam Troughton, who is the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton's grandson. Like I recognised him. I knew the face. But he was also in the British TV series Robin Hood.
To be fair, though, if you've got a British actor in something, there will be like sort of a couple of links to get them to Doctor Who.
There'll be
everyone's been in Doctor Who.
His dad's in 2 episodes of Doctor Who. There's another bit of his dad was in 2 episodes on both eras, classic and new. But yeah, I could start on Doctor Who already. That's not a good sign.
So is there anything else that you want to say about it before we get into spoilers?
Pretty much summed up. I mean, if it's not really high drama. There is obviously bits of drama, there's bits of tension here and there and stuff like that. I mean, the scene, again, not going into too much spoiler, but the scene of like what looked like a fancy dress party, and he turns up drunk, and he basically declares, "This is the story I'm going to do," and he just tears down Charles Dance's character, and that was an amazing scene, brilliant scene.
Yeah,
that. It's not really dramatic. It's more like you don't feel awkward for him, but you're going to say something wrong in a minute. You're going to say something.
I was going to say this for spoilers, but Charles Dance earns the "and," doesn't he?
Oh yeah.
Because in the credits he gets blah 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 credits everybody that's in it and Charles Dance. And when I watched the film, I was like, oh, that's what he got the "and" for. He got his "and" there, didn't he? Given that this is a film about credits.
Yeah. The guy who played Orson Welles was pretty good as well. Like he was very good in it.
First scene I thought that was Michael Shannon. Obviously it's not. But from the back I was like, is that Michael Shannon? Can't really see, only see Oh, his face.
But again, he's an English guy. There's a lot of English people in that film. But I mean, that's the one thing I took away from was the performances.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it was directed really well. It was done well. You could tell there was a sort of place of, even though I've never seen Citizen Kane.
It was written by David Fincher's late father as well.
Was it? I saw the name was the same. I didn't know the link between them. But
yeah, his dad's recently passed, so it's sort of a passion thing for him as well. So I don't want to rail on it too hard either for that reason, you know.
Right, so
spoilers.
Spoil it for people.
Spoilers.
Spoil it.
Right, biggest spoiler for me is I'm on Orson Welles' side in this. And I mean, I know that might be like saying, "Oh, well, Darth Vader was just trying to protect all the guys on the Death Star." You know? But the guy signed a contract.
Yeah,
he signed a contract to say, "Right, I'm gonna ghostwrite this script." And then when he realised, "Oh, I've done my best work in my life here," he's like, "I want credit for it." And Orson Welles, to his credit as well, was saying, "Well, hey, you wouldn't have managed to do that if I hadn't have given you everything that I gave you. I created this for you to be able to do this, and you on the understanding that you were going to ghostwrite it for me." That said, I actually thought Orson Welles wrote it up until I checked my DVD case. So, you know.
Well, that's the thing. I think I'm right in saying his only Oscar was the co-writing that, and he didn't write it. That's the only Oscar he won.
Yeah. But to be fair to him as well, I mean, like, it's been looked into and all stuff. I'm not really going to talk about that because I don't know much about the thing. But, you know, apparently, you know, Orson Welles did do writing on it. But also, Mank gets first credit, and then it's Orson Welles. So he ended up with the credit for writing the screenplay. So I don't see why that was a problem.
And Orson Welles obviously produced it, directed it, was in it. Mm-hmm. He probably did the catering.
Sing the theme tune, write the theme tune.
But me being liking to do a bit of writing, would like to write stuff one day. The writer in me was kind of going, "No, you fight for that, you fight for that." But then you're right. He signed the contract, and it's like, "Oh yeah, I've actually done a masterpiece here."
And I mean, the thing is, all it was he was having to do his job for once, because the rest of the time he just sat about and fucking gambled and stuff like that. And then they all just like threw bits of information at each other and goes, "There's a fucking script, make that." That's all they did for like the whole time, and no wonder they were like, "Oh, we're getting loads of money for this. It's going to be a nightmare when this gravy train ends." Yeah, everyone would think that. Everyone would think, "Oh, I really hope I get to make this kind of cash for doing nothing forever. That'd be great." But then someone made him do his actual job. Turns out he was really good at it. And then he got annoyed.
And it kind of rejuvenated his career again for a bit after that. Mm-hmm. So I think I can't remember the exact details, but I don't think anything he did was as sort of critically well received or became as infamous as Citizen Kane. Mm-hmm. But he had commercial success again a couple of times after that. So it was kind of thanks to Orson Welles and Gum, you give him the opportunity.
Aye. I mean, and the thing is as well, you know, that alcohol was a problem for him. If you're struggling with something like that, you might not see the bigger picture, or it clearly, as is, you know, if Orson Welles was even giving him something on a plate, then maybe he was clouded by the fact that he was steamed most of the time. You know, there's a good chance of that. Other thing I was going to say is, like, while I didn't like the whole thing overall, as I've already said, I liked a lot of elements of it, thought it was technically great. Directing, like you said, brilliant. Score, great. You know, cinematography, great. Scenes. I loved individual scenes. The LB Mayer walk and talk while he takes them with the new kid through the lot. I thought was brilliant. And then he goes in and then he cuts everyone's pay in half, and then he comes back out and he's like, boom. And then what was it Mank says? He's like, "That's not even the worst thing I've seen him do." Yeah.
Obviously, I don't know a lot about him, but I'm fascinated by that style, especially MGM in that time. There's only a couple of years before that they did The Wizard of Oz and stuff like that, so they're riding pretty high. I'm sure they did Gone with the Wind and other couple of films like that. So when Mank was getting made, like, apparently that Louis B. Mayer was kind of like just not a tyrant. That's probably not but he was just sort of like a businessman,
fairly ruthless in business.
It was just, from what, obviously I don't know, I never met the guy, but from what I can gather from what I've heard, it was just kind of like, and which is fair enough to an extent. Yeah. We need to make money. Make me money. I don't care how it's done. I don't care who you are.
Which,
make me money. And
that's how these guys operate. For all that we love Kevin Feige for his Marvel movies, I got Marvel in there. Look at that. I think I can do it.
We'll get all the fan bases.
I bet Kevin Feige's ruthless as hell. He chops people's heads off and
Right.
stuff like that, I reckon. Drinks baby
But
blood
that's
and
the
all
thing,
that
though,
sort of
because
thing.
you have to. At the end of the day, it is a
Yeah.
business. You want to make films. You need to make money. You need to make money. Make films.
Mhm.
And it's just that you've got
So
to,
yeah, I mean, one thing I
it's
was thinking was another good performance from him. I didn't really think of his as a performance. I just really enjoyed every time he popped up, sort of thing. The first scene in the big sort of dining hall when it was his birthday, as well, where you first meet Charles Dance and all that sort of thing. That big scope of
yeah.
that room. I wonder if they got the same fireplace from Citizen Kane. Do you know that fireplace? Fireplace is a massive
think
thing in
I
Citizen
think I know what
Kane,
you're
sort of
talking
thing,
about.
anyway. And it looks like it's the same thing. Whether they got the same one or not, I don't know. But it definitely looks like that. That scene I really loved, and I really liked the Toby Leonard Moore scene outside the funeral. He gets the best "fuck you" because he's just stood outside and then
Yeah.
just talking about it. It's like, "Oh, Mank, it's a real shame. It's like you should come by the offices." And he's like, "I did come by your office. I didn't get by secretary's secretary." And he just goes, "Oh, really?" Boom, and off he goes. And you're like, "Oh, that's a scene stealer there, isn't it?" I mean, he's really good as an actor.
I was going to mention him and LB Mayer's sort of like what's his name?
But
Thalberg. Is it Irvin Thalberg? Anyway, like I've saw pictures of them in real life because I watched it's like a 5 hour behind the scenes story of the Wizard of
right,
Oz, which in itself would make a cracking
aye,
film. And they were involved in NGM at the time, so you saw pictures of them, and they looked really like the guys they played. Those two, it's like you could be forgiven for thinking that they've got them, they've got the real guys. They really
yeah.
look like them. But that's the thing. Even like the smaller parts like that, and like sort of like the background characters, like they do like all the performances were standout,
Mhm.
like really good. Like none of them are going like anything they can like sing and dance and show. Like, look at me, look what I can do. They're very sort of understated roles, but they're all done like really well. And I think one scene, like going back to like amazing scenes and stuff, the scene that follows that big birthday party scene for
Yeah,
WB Mayer when Amanda Seyfried and Gary Oldman just walk around the gardens of the
yeah.
castle, and in like there's a zoo there.
That zoo's very, very Citizen Kane.
But it looked amazing. It looked like it was just spot on. It was like it was filmed in the late 30s, early
Yeah,
40s.
what was it? It made me want to go to LA then and look around studios and stuff like that, look around
Yeah,
backlots and stuff. And that, like, you're right there. There was a weird thing about that scene where I thought the light in there, it always seemed like it was just about to be dawn. They seemed to
yeah,
go out in the middle of the night, and then as soon as they started walking around, it was almost like it was dawn coming up. Like, I don't know why, it was
yeah.
odd. And then there was another one, a similar thing when we were talking about lightning, when he was outside the house and someone came to visit him, and there was sort of like the moon was coming up and everything. That looked really odd. Just the way they set that scene was just bizarre. Sort of give it a bit of a trippy feel. Like,
That's the thing, 'cause, like obviously with black and white, like everything in like back then was pretty much all
Mhm.
filmed indoors as much as it could be in studios. But you look at things like It's a Wonderful Life. The scene when near the end of that when he's running through the snow, it looks
Mhm.
freezing and it looks really cold, and like I shiver every time I watch it. There's just kind of similar
Yeah.
things with this, like when the sun's beaming through his window when he's lying in
Yeah,
bed
you can
and stuff
feel
like
that
that.
hangover, can't
It,
you?
I felt and I felt stuffy, and I was like, oh, shut the
Yeah.
curtains, and it's just it's really it's weird in black and white. The
Mhm.
really got sort of like the feeling, like the light, the darkness, the heat. It was all. It felt cozy when they were in that. And I think what's his name, Charles Dance's character, he did build himself a castle apparently in real
Yes, he
life,
did die. Yeah, yeah.
and like
Aye.
when they're in the castle, it looks like when they're next to the fire, it looks
Mhm.
quite cozy. It looks very, it feels like it would be very
Yeah.
hollow when you talk, your voice would
Well, that's a big thing in
amplify and
Citizen
echo. It
Kane,
just
like he amasses a great wealth and buys all this artwork and builds himself a sort of a tribute to himself and has the grandest things and all that sort of stuff, and it's sort of becomes about the hollowness that is. So that giant castle is an allegory for the guy's life and how you can fill your life full of things and it's still empty. Which I thought another allegory I thought was great was the organ grinder's monkey parable. I really enjoyed that. That's the
yeah,
Charles Dance scene when he's leading him out the door. Now, Mank mentions it
right, yeah,
earlier on. The sort of Lily Collins asks him, why are you here? And he's like, the organ grinder's monkey. And I've never really heard it said that way. How the organ grinder,
right.
so the monkey gets dressed up in this bow tie and all that sort of thing, and then goes out and dances, and you think, oh, it's great, I'm dancing. Every time I dance, this organ grinder gets to play his music. Wouldn't it be a shame for this organ grinder if I didn't dance? So I'll keep dancing because it's nice for him, isn't it? Bless him. Meaning that, Mank is the monkey, get out my house, I was keeping you here for my entertainment, basically, sort of thing. I thought, was brilliant. And that just sort of puts him in, like you said, like it puts him in his place then, sort of thing. And that sort of, it encapsulates what the whole film's about.
I wish I made a note of it, but the last line of the film, when he's standing with his Oscar.
Oh, yeah. He says, Orson will accept this in the same way that he did when in the script, which is to say he's not here or something like that. Yeah, aye.
Yeah. And I was shots fired.
Bitch. Bitch. Harold Mankiewicz, or whatever his name is. No, it's Herman Mankiewicz, sorry.
Herman.
You know his name from. So I reckon, having talked about this with you and like gone into it more and like tried to pull it apart, I've got a better appreciation for this film than I would have done just watching it. Like, definitely, I've enjoyed this conversation and stuff like that. It's sort of it's nice to bounce things off and see that, we either thought same or differently, sort of thing. What do you reckon in this weird world and time that we're in for awards for this?
I think it'd get cinematography, production design. Gary Oldman will get nominated.
I think he will, yeah, just because he's Gary Oldman. And I know, I probably just because he is that good, I just ignore him because he's always that good. So
yeah, it's like in the same sense like Meryl Streep. It's like she's going
to
be
you
awesome.
Put Meryl Streep in a film, so we'll nominate her. Remember that? What was it? Into the Woods.
Yeah, I mean she's awesome in it, but I wouldn't say she's Oscar worthy, but she's awesome. But yeah, writing maybe. I mean, was it based on it? Was it a book before?
I don't know. That would actually, I suppose, it'd be quite nice, wouldn't it? Given that David Fincher made this based off his dad's script and his dad's past, like a posthumous thing, would be nice. I can't really think because I haven't really seen enough films to know. That's why I asked you, because I haven't seen enough films this year to know what is likely to be nominated or anything like that. So, well, that was our review of Mank. If you enjoyed this one, you may be interested to know that this was just a small part of a larger waffle that we do every 2 weeks. You'll be able to find that wherever you found this one, hopefully. You'll also be able to follow us on all of our social media platforms linked below. And if you want to get in touch with us, please feel free to do so anytime you like. You can reach out on social media, or you can email us at w.a.f.f.l.e.podd@gmail.com. Goodbye.